Now let us look at a key question, that why financial statements should be reported in a certain standard or a standardized format. Say for example a company A, you will note that any company goes through thousands and thousands of transactions, and these can be reported in different ways altogether. Company A following their own standards, company B following their own standards to report their transactions. So if I as an investor want to kind of compare the two above, probably information disclosed by A and information disclosed by B is not comparable altogether. That may actually happen if we don't have the standards altogether. So a standard of comparison would include minimum disclosure norms, disclosures that this company needs to make. So when it comes to the minimum disclosures, you'll note that then you can kind of compare to companies which are in US or UK or emerging countries, because they have at least disclosed some minimum amount in a standardized format. And secondly, it also becomes useful to a range of users who are from different countries. A user in emerging country may want to invest in stock in US, or vice versa. That is kind of possible because if there is some standard of comparison. So that's why we kind of require financial statements to be standardized. Now let us look at those entities who helps us in terms of ensuring the standards of comparison and the compliance of the above. So these entities are actually of two types. One, there is a standard setting body. Now these standard setting bodies are essentially a pool of accountants and auditors. They actually help in terms of making the financial reporting standards. So these are the ones who actually provide us with some information on how the reporting standards should be given. Now the second one, who is very important again, is the regulatory authorities or regulatory bodies. Now regulatory bodies are the ones who have legal authority to ensure the compliance of the above standards. Now on one side we have the standard setting body that sets the standard, and on the other side the legal compliance needs to be ensured and maintained. So these are called as regulatory bodies. So let's look at the example. From the point of view of US, we have the accounting standard body called as FASB. This is Financial Accounting Standards Board. And then in the international arena we have the IASB. This is basically International Accounting Standards Board. So both of them being very important. If you look at US, what they do in terms of reporting standards is called as US GAAP. US Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. So they establish this US GAAP. On the international side, they establish the IFRS. This is the International Financial Reporting Standards. International Financial Reporting Standards. So both of them are important. They are making the reporting standards. Now coming to the regulatory bodies that ensure the legal compliances is within US we have the SEC. This is basically Securities and Exchange Commission. For the UK you will have the body called as FSA. This is the Financial Services Authority. Both of them actually take care of their respective regions in ensuring that above is properly looked at. This is SEC's website. Basically they are the regulatory authorities, and they ensure compliance of the reporting standards, that is the US GAAP. Now SEC has some filing requirements for publicly traded companies. Each publicly traded company has to file certain number of disclosures at regular intervals or at regular events. So let's look at what are these filings all about. So you can go to filings and click on description of SEC forms, and here you will find a whole list of SEC forms that must be disclosed. So if you scroll down, you'll find that each SEC filing has a number and a description and a SEC number and the latest update date. So if I quickly give you a snapshot, you will note that there's a huge list of SEC forms which are important that needs to be updated by the publicly traded companies, but there would be some which are very important from the point of view of analysis. Let me shed some light on those. Say for example, form number S1. This is basically a registration statement filed prior to the date of new security to the public. So S1 is basically while the company goes for an IPO, they have to file this kind of a documentation. Then let's move forward and look forward to some other important filings. Then we have the 10K report, the next important one. This is basically an annual filing which includes information about the business and their financial statements altogether, with some minimum disclosures as well. These are audited, and hence these are very important for doing peer-to-peer comparisons or doing financial analysis of a company. Then we also have the 10Q. 10Q are basically the, instead of the annual filing, we have the quarterly filings. One important thing you need to note about 10Q is that these are not audited. However, these 10Q files actually report the income statement, balance sheets, and to an extent cash flows as well for that company. Then probably 8K is also equally important. 8K is actually the one which discloses material events like maybe acquisitions or disposals, maybe change in management or corporate governance. So 8K again extremely important to look at. Let's move forward and see if we could find some other important or significant SEC filings. Yes, 20F and 40F. Essentially, these are again annual reports. 20F is by any foreign issuer. Okay, so annual report filed by any foreign issuer, 20F, and 40F is essentially the ones for Canadian companies. So if Canadian companies are listed in the US, they have to file 40F. And say for example a company listed in Hong Kong and is also listed in US, they have to kind of file 20F. So this is how it works. Let's move forward and look at some others if we could. Then we have some numbers like Form 3, Form 4 and Form 5. These are basically those transactions with respect to the ownership changes made by the company officers and directors. So if you want to see how the management is actually changing hands in terms of the ownership, you can actually go about looking at Form 3, 4 and 5. So I guess there's a huge list, you may go through it. However, we have discussed the most important ones from the point of view of analysis.